any suggestions to gain confidence for the application process, MCAT, MMI, and the start of medical school? Biggest tip is practice, practice, practice. The only way that you're going to get better at something is by practicing it. So for the MCAT, write as many practice tests as you can. You will have to pay for some, unfortunately, but that's just the name of the game. If you can find old MCAT books from people that have written it in the past, that might be helpful for saving some money. Yeah, and with the MMIs too, just practice with yourself in front of the mirror. I know it sounds awful. It's super awkward and really uncomfortable, but it does work. Practice with other people. If you know other people that are applying, you can practice questions with them. If you do have the funds and you feel like you need the structure, you can get those courses or get someone to help you with your interview preparation. And then, yeah, that's about all I would say is just practice and don't burn yourself out. Don't try to spend way too much time studying or working on questions because if you're exhausting yourself and you're burning yourself out, your performance is going to suffer and it's not worth it. In terms of gaining confidence for the start of medical school, that's basically what you've been doing your whole life. If you've been doing extracurriculars and you've been being involved in different aspects of your life and learning about whatever you did in your undergraduate degree, whether it was biology or kinesiology or theater or music or theology, like whatever your background is, you should hopefully have gained some confidence in that journey. And whatever your life circumstances are too, everyone's gone through some different struggles and difficulties and everyone has their own story. So really focus on that and knowing yourself, and then that'll give you the confidence that you need. I feel that you don't really need to prep for medical school. Like after you get the acceptance letter, don't sit down and start reading Grey's Anatomy. Like really do not worry about preparing for it. It's just going to make you more stressed, and you need to enjoy the last summer or whatever it is that you have off before starting, and just have fun, de-stress, relax.
Ryan, I was just wondering, remember you gave an example the first time about how you had certain stories that you used that gave examples of how that you showed character in certain situations. Can you mention that again?
Sure, yeah. And I think what's popping into my mind would be some scuba diving related things, I think. So this is a scuba diving flag I have right beside me, actually. And through my training, I've had a whole whack of different experiences and exposures, some pretty intense and some just pretty hilarious. And you can twist, if you're asked something like, when was a time that you showed leadership? You could talk about a time where you had to take over as a leader of a dive because something happened with one of your other dive members and the normal leader had to go up with them. Or you could say, tell me about a time where you had to think quickly. You could do the exact same example. But if you're in a different room for an MMI, it really doesn't matter because you can use that story over again. Or you can say a time where you were outside of your comfort zone. Again, you can use the same story. It doesn't need to be something new every time if you're doing an MMI. And that's something that that I actually did use. I talked about the same scuba diving stories multiple times in the same interviews, just at different stations, even for residency. Is that what you were thinking, Heather?
That's exactly. And the other thing is, you also mentioned before, and I found this was really helpful, to be very authentic.
Yeah. You're not talking to a bunch of dummies when you're in your interviews. You're talking to students who have gone through what you've gone through. They were sitting in that same position as you. You're talking to physicians who were maybe a while ago sitting in that same position, but have a huge amount of experience in the medical field. And then you're talking to community members or leaders who either have been patients in the past or are like leaders of advocacy groups. And everyone can see through if you're trying to lie or stretch the truth. The best thing to do is to be authentic and just be your true self. There's nothing worse than when I was interviewing, like when I was the interviewer, I would have applicants coming into the room and sit down and say, you know, something very, very structured. Like, today I'm going to answer the question that was proposed to me about this. I have three thoughts on my mind. The first one is this. The second one is this. The third one is this. Now I'm going to talk to you about the first thought that I had in my mind. And that just drove me crazy. I just wanted to have a conversation with these people, and they were so thrown off if I told them to stop and, you know, stop using their structure. Because people get so reliant on that. And no one really is like that in real life. That's something that people are told to do and trained to do from spending a ton of money on prep courses that really might not be that helpful. So if you're your authentic self, some of the best scores that I gave in my interviews were people that came in and we just had a conversation. One of them talked about the environmental impact of factory farming. And I was like, this is great. This is something that I didn't know about. And this was a really cool conversation that I just had. And it was someone that was easy to talk to because I knew that they were passionate about what they were talking about. So
That's another good point. Be passionate.
yeah, absolutely. And it will show.